Hello, Ben.
Hello, Chazi. How's it going?
Thank God. I missed you last week. I'm sorry it did not
All
work
good.
out. However, well, no, your mom was in a while ago. At this time, it was on me. Um,
Mm.
uh, how
And then
has
next week
your
we're gonna have Passover too. So
and the next week we're gonna have Passover too. Correct. Um, how was the last 2 weeks?
last 2 weeks have been good. Um, I've been normal. I think. Yeah, I haven't had any more visitors. I'm going to New York on Friday.
Oh wow. Why? Work wise, I'm assuming.
No, for the seder.
Oh, nice. Who are you going with?
I'm going with my wife, and we're gonna go to my sister who lives in New Jersey.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah, so it's gonna be nice.
Very, very cool. We're in New Jersey.
They live like around South Orange, Maplewood.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Um, when is the last time you had a Passover Seder? Or last year, you're gonna say, which makes sense.
No, actually, last year I didn't, but the year before that.
And
But not with my family. Like with my family, I haven't had Seder in like probably could be 10 years, and like I've done it with my family. I've never
so
been
in the
in.
Passover Seder, for anyone who is, there's a stream going on right now on an estuary, not an estuary thing right now. So all the millions of people that watch us are not going to be here today. But to those who are or those who watch later, the Passover Seder, as some know culturally, but generally speaking, definitely in observant or religious homes,
Mhm.
is a very big deal, right? You're spending the whole weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depends, cleaning the whole house.
Yeah.
And then the climax is on the Seder, and we sit and we go over the whole story of the Exodus of Egypt. And um, there's a booklet that comes along with it. And there's a Seder, which means there is how would you say Seder in Hebrew? A
It's not an or. It's an agenda. It's an order.
No,
It's
it's because the seder is just like it's organized. It's organized. It's
Mhm.
uh, it's
Our
uh,
organized feast.
it's the organized piece, right? It's the organized telling of the story,
Right.
and it's also organized in a specific way and sequence, right?
Hmm.
And it could be a very dragged out. It could be a very long, not dragged out, but it could be a very long, long
Hmm.
experience. So it's been years since you have one, and you're having one at your sister's house. Um,
Hmm.
are you anticipating it this year? Is it going to be any different this year? Are you looking at it with a new light?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to like do it with my sister. I haven't done that. I haven't done it with for a long time, so it'll be interesting to do that. I'm looking forward to it, just to be with family and to do that. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do it because also it's like their first Passover not in Israel, so they
Mm-hmm.
just kind of relocated here. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, so they need to figure stuff out. So it's
Right.
probably going to be more messy. But there's going to be a few more people there. So it'll be interesting. And yeah, I mean, like, it's definitely seeing it a little bit in a different light, but also it's like it's at my sister's, so it's like it's basically they're going to run the show.
Do you have any words of wisdom or words of Torah that you're going to share at the feast, at the sequence?
I don't know. We will see.
All right. Um, it's always a good opportunity to uh, or at least what I think makes the Seder a little more lively is if you could put it
Mhm.
into a contemporary setting and
Mhm.
obviously explain these things.
Yeah, I mean, we're not missing any of that kind of context for
Right,
everybody.
right, exactly. Unfortunately,
So I
we have
think they will be able to
yeah, we have
modernize it to like yeah get enough examples from the current events.
um. All right. Uh, 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 Without further ado, where
Yeah.
were we last week? Right, last week we did the first. the first, or not like 2 weeks ago, we started the first chapter.
First furlong.
Right. Okay. We spoke about how we use the term Bachar b'Mishnatam, how they expanded the language of the Mishnah, showing that this was an add-on, but nevertheless we saw it was still important, that it was used the language of the Mishnah, and that we have to treat this as we would treat the Mishnah with regards to like importance. And then we spoke about different relationships that we have together with God, and one who is dealing with the Torah for its own sake, what that means, studying Torah for its own sake, and the relationship and the things you merit from that relationship with God. Right. We spoke about how it also how it makes you humble, and nevertheless it also puts you into a position of sovereignty, dominion, jurisprudence. And doesn't that seem like it's contradicts itself? We gave examples from other Mishnayot we read in the past, where all things, and specifically these things, when done in the proper measure and in the proper context, can obviously be used as great powers to do great things, and ultimately God's will. However, if being used improperly, or through the dark side of the force, they can be extremely destructive. I think that is we spoke about the Razeh Torah. You learn secrets. We give a story of the Ari that would mumble when he would sleep, right? Or these certain intuitions. I would say it's more. There's this mathematician. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he had equations came to him when he was sleeping, right? Ramanujan, I think his name is, and it was very hard for them to figure out his sequences, because how are you coming up with these proofs, so to speak?
Right.
There's another sort of mindset, or not mindset, but a sort of state of mind, which is once you're delving into something for a very long time, you could start to anticipate and see certain things with regards to how to anticipate things in the mode of being you're looking at things through, right? So if I have my halacha goggles on, if I am witnessing like a new element right now, I'm not shaken, because I know different elements that I could apply, and I could sort of see, how would I deal with this in the future? And that doesn't necessarily tell you the secrets of the Torah, but that is giving you knowledge to sort of take an advance of the future and try to make some sort of predictions based on how things move along. I'm not saying that's what this Torah line is talking about. I'm just saying we could read into this. We could read into this in different ways. All right, let's move on to number 2. Mishnah Bet. Do you want me to read? Do you want to read?
I can read it.
Go ahead.
So אמר רבי יהושע בן לוי, בכל יום ויום בת קול יוצאת מהר חורב, ומכרזת ואומרת, אוי להם לבריות מעלבונה של תורה, שכל מי שאינו עוסק בתורה נקרא נזוף, שנאמר נזם זהב באף חזיר, אישה יפה ושרת טעם. ואומר, והלוחות מעשה אלוהים המה, והמכתב מכתב אלוהים הוא. חרוט על הלוחות, אל תקרא חירות אלא חרוט. לא, אל תקרא חרוט אלא חירות. שאין לך בן חורין אלא מי שעוסק בתלמוד תורה, וכל מי שעוסק בתלמוד תורה הרי זה מתעלה. שנאמר, וממתנה נחליאל ומנחניאל במוות. במות. In English, said Rabbi Joshua to the son of Levi, every day an echo resounds from Mount Horeb, Sinai, proclaiming and saying, woe is to the creatures who insult the Torah. For one does not occupy himself in Torah, for one who does not occupy himself in Torah is considered an outcast, as is stated in Proverbs. A golden nose ring in the snout of a swine, a beautiful woman bereft of reason. And it says in Exodus, and the tablets are the work of God, and the writing is God's writing, engraved on the tablets. Read not engraved, but liberty. For there is no free individual except for he who occupies himself with the study of Torah. And whoever occupies himself with the study of Torah is elevated, as is stated in Numbers, and from the gift to Nechliel, and from Nechliel to the heights.
All right. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. I'm excited now. We're back to to figures again.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of chapter 5 was, if you recall, 7, 4, 3. We did all these numbers. Okay, so Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Let's talk about this dude for a second. He really was. But he really was. Brilliant and a maverick.
It says he's brilliant here, and it's
in the book. Okay, so good. I'm excited. You'll tell me.
It's validated.
Okay, it's validated. He was one of the greatest Amoraim of the first generation of the Amoraim. So he's really there at the start. So I mean, it's all relative, but at the start of the this Talmud experience, and he had really big an extensive knowledge of the Jewish law. His name is mentioned many times in the Talmud, and he was known as an expert in specifically Agadah, which is fascinating. Whatever, we'll get into what Agadah means at some other time. Now there's many stories about him, but like some of the famous stories are that he often would meet with the prophet Elijah. And I think that, there's a story with him meeting with the prophet Elijah, and he asks Elijah, when is the Messiah coming?
Yeah, I just heard this last week because it's related to the parasha. So yeah, interesting. It's also in the book. So
I hope it's the right one. Are you saying? Well, we'll see. We'll see if Baruch Shekimanti. So I even think he's saying this outside of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai's grave. Or that's like when the interaction happens, because he was like talking to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Anyways, he talks to Elijah. He sees him and he says, "When is Messiah coming?" And Messiah tells him, "He's here. He's in Rome." And he goes. He gets his consciousness gets blasted over to Rome, and he witnesses the Messiah. And the Messiah is full of bandages all over, and he's slowly taking off the bandages from his body. And he tells him, Messiah, when are you coming? And his response is like, I will come the moment that the Jewish people repent. I could come today if you listen to if you heed his voice, God's voice. He doesn't say if you heed my voice, okay? He says he reads God's voice, but the attitude is at any moment the Messiah is ready to come. That mindset is ready. That times. However you want to see what the Messiah is, a person, a mindset, a time period, all three of those combined. Either way, it requires from us to change our mindset and change the script. But until we do so, it could feel like an eternity. As we say, Be'ita achishena, right? When the time is right, it will come very, very quickly.
Right.
And this also relates to different versions of the prophecies that we see, which seem to contradict themselves sometimes in the prophets. There is a way to look at that, that these are options, right? There are different routes, like in different timelines. And if we continue one way, we might end up being in Ezekiel's vision. If we continue another way, we might be in Micah's version. So the prophet wasn't a future, didn't see the future. The prophet would tell us, if you do this, then Y is going to happen, right? It's someone that has very, very clear vision of what's in front of him and how things are going to manifest. That doesn't necessarily mean, obviously one has to be divinely inspired. But again, we're not talking about a parlor trick or someone that is somehow read through the stars what's going to happen. Rather, he is aware of a cause and effect. He's aware of this from a more grand perspective. But nevertheless, it's still a cause and effect sort of insight.
Right. And there is a technical difference in terms of, at least from my understanding and from the Rambam, in terms of understanding what will happen based on whether it's a positive prediction or a negative prediction.
Correct. Well, I mean, you also have to obviously, again, once we're not going to do this obviously every time, but once you want to, because I've been thinking about this recently, like,
Yeah.
and I very much am also, all of us obviously are on the shoulders of the Rambam, but he isn't the end all be all at the end of the day. I mean, like a lot of times we fall comfortably on him, but he is Mr. Rationalist, and like I want to use him as another tool in my, and he's obviously not a tool, of course, but I'm saying he's another pair of glasses I could wear when observing and learning the Torah. It doesn't necessarily mean he's the only one, but yes. Andrew, I hope all is well, and we're very glad to have you with us. Okay, so we were talking about Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. He was very wealthy. He was very involved with the authorities. He would help pay them off and help the Jewish community. He was. We spoke about this in a previous Mishnah about how one could judge independently as in a single person. However, we said it's better to judge in three. He was famously known as teaching his students to feel confident to give judgment with one judge on their own. And that was, again, to showcase like how, if you would say like, oh, he's a Harvard grad, you'd be like, oh, he's a student of Yehoshua ben Levi. That's why he's judging in one right now, because he is so confident, like in his, like, in his method of teaching and his studying. Now there is a crazy story about Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. He is one of the people who enters the world, enters heaven, so to speak, undead. Right? We have Elijah, we have Enoch, we have some others, but the story goes that he was. I can't remember right now off the top of my mind if he did this because with meeting Elijah or not, but he meets the angel of death, and the angel of death is and the angel of death comes to him and tells him, show me paradise, show me heaven. And the angel of death takes him over there, and he sees this great wall, and he says like, this is heaven. And he says, okay, show me where my location is going to be. And he says like, well, I can't show you where your location is going to be. I can't let you in there. But he says, I'll show. He ends up agreeing and says, I'll let you see heaven. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, you have to give me your sickle or your dagger. You can't hold it with you. And because if I turn around, you might try to kill me. So the angel of death says like, okay, no problem. You could hold my sickle. He jumps over the fence. He's like, that's it. I'm not coming out. I'm done. And the angel of death, he's like, that's so not cool. You got to come out. You got to come and give me back my sickle. He says, I'm not leaving. And then basically there is a heavenly voice that comes and tells him, give him back his sickle, because he ultimately, that's his function in the world, right? Like he has to be able to do that. But as far as leaving, they ask him if he says, I swear I'm not leaving this place. And then they ask him, the heavenly voice asks him, have you ever made an oath and haven't kept it in your life? And he says, there's no oath I never kept. And then the heavenly voice responds, and like, we're not going to make you break this oath then. And then you could stay in heaven, basically. So the story is trust no one. No, I'm just saying, but that is the story, if I remember correctly, of him not dying.
Is this in the Talmud?
Yes, this is in the Talmud. This is in the Talmud. Very, 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 very cool story. There's also his love, and one of the reasons, famous stories, why it's also related to this Mishnah is he is running with his grandson or son. He's running with his grandson, and he gets stopped by a man and says, why are you running? They're running to the study hall, to the Beit Midrash. He says, why are you running? And he says, I'm running over to, oh wait, he doesn't have on his head, he only has like a regular hat. He doesn't have his main covering, his head covering on. And someone asks, why are you running out without your head covering? And he says, how could I not run with my grandson right now to learn Torah? It's a lot more important than this. Like, this is the most important thing, and I can't stop for a trivial thing like picking up my hat. But it was to show how important it was for him to be a part of, the way he mentions it, as being a part of Sinai, right?
Yeah.
My son is learning right now, and this is me partaking in the tradition of teaching your son and taking the Torah and passing it on. And that is a miniature Sinai event. And if it's between that and going back to get my hat, of course, I choose the mini Sinai event.
Yeah.
But does the book mention these stories? Because I would be interested to know.
It mentions some kind of anecdotes, like the story with with Elijah and the Messiah,
Right.
and it mentions about going into paradise alive, and no rainbow appeared in his lifetime.
Right. No rainbow appeared in his lifetime, and he was also known to be able to pray for rain, and his prayers would answered immediately. There's a few other like that.
Right.
Famously, there's one called Choni Hamagel. Choni, the one that would circle. Now, Choni's grandfather and father were more skilled than Choni. They knew the truer sequence of how to demand water immediately.
Yeah, Choni was like, what would they call him? What does the rabbi call him? He calls him, you're like a petulant, not a petulant.
Right. He said, I know, I'm forgetting right now the exact wording, but yes, he gets reprimanded.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no rainbow, meaning that God was not angry at the generation when Rav Yehoshua ben Levi was around.
Yeah, and part of why he merited to go into paradise alive is because he would teach Torah to people that were very sick or even had contagious diseases and stuff like that. So he can engage with people from all walks of life.
I think, if I remember correctly, they say they found his grave in Israel. So, like, I guess that like makes the whole paradise story a little more problematic. But it could also be that they said that's a different Rav Yehoshua ben Levi, and that's why the story remains in its place. But that is really the limit of what I know about Rav Yehoshua ben Levi with regards to like these stories, and then some I don't remember off the top of my head. Okay, so what did he tell us? Every day an echo resounds from Mount Horeb, Sinai, proclaiming and saying, "Woe is to the creatures who insult the Torah. For one who does not occupy himself in Torah is considered an outcast, as it is stated in Proverbs, a golden nose ring in the snout of a swine, a beautiful woman." And we just continue. There's a lot of examples basically off this one line. So what is this heavenly voice, right? And why is it coming out of Mount Horeb? So why is it coming out of Mount Horeb? That I think is pretty clear in a certain sense, because that's where the Torah originates from. Right, so that's its source in a certain way, and the heavenly voice, or in Hebrew it's called a bat kol. The exact translation would be a daughter of a voice. Right, it doesn't actually mean a daughter of a voice, but it means an echo. Right, it's derived from like a preceding sound, and it's echoing the original sound. Right, ultimately.
Right.
And even after that original sound has ceased, as we all know, an echo sort of continues. Right, so that's what a bat kol is called. We call it a heavenly voice, so it's like an echoing of a heavenly voice. But thinking about it as echoing is a little more important than just a new voice coming out from the sky speaking, right? Generally, we would think like suddenly the clouds part and there's like a Lion King sort of ray of light coming down and we hear a voice. But if you think about it as echoing, it's sort of always there.
Right.
Right? It sort of relates back to what you just said about the rainbow. When we talk about the rainbow, God says, "Ba'anan be'ovi ha'anan," like in the cloud that's within the cloud. We spoke about this, I believe, once, and gave an example, which is like the hastara shebetocha hastara, right? Like these are concealed veils, and God is always there in a certain way, and that voice is always echoing. So the voice he's talking about specifically is the voice that came out of the voice we heard at Sinai, and the voice that the Israelites responded back that we will do and we will listen, right? And two of those voices are echoing back at each other constantly, right? So that is the heavenly voice that we're hearing.
Right.
Now we then have to ask, where is this echo heard, right? Where are we hearing this, and who is privileged to hear this voice, right? So start off, we would say, it's only it resonates within everyone's soul who is following the Torah commandments of right? Be very careful to not let these teachings and words ever leave your soul or leave your lips, right? Specifically, Yom Asher Amata Lifnei Adonai Lecha Bechorev, right? The day you were standing in front of Mount Sinai. So it has to be the mindset of you already taking these things seriously and trying to learn these things, right? One who is remembering the event of the proclamation that the Israelites did to God as well, right? So someone participating in a Passover Seder is someone that is interested, for example, in rediscussing and revisiting this story, right? That's someone that's in that tradition where you could say the heavenly voice could potentially resonate, or at least he's creating a space, right, where he could hear those echoes, or he's tuning his frequency where he could still hear those sounds out there, right? We know that there's sounds in space right now, but if we don't aim our antenna towards those sounds, we're not going to hear those sounds. And only now, do we see like the microwave lights from the Big Bang, right? But those are still coming out there from the Earth 13.8 billion years ago. We could still observe them now if we have the right tools and we tune them turn them correctly.
Right. It's like the old sci-fi movies of like tuning your radio. Like if you tune your radio in the right frequency, you can hear some the signals from outer space. So, but it's a dynamic that happens. It's a two-way. Then it's a two-way dynamic where there are echoes exist in the space. We just need to make sure that we just need to put our signals in the right way.
Right. So, so back to are people listening to this voice? Where are we hearing this voice? So I would say the brief answer is we don't hear the voice, and we don't hear it when we don't want to hear the voice. Right. Mm-hmm. And in a sense that there has to be a desired, which is also accompanied with a willingness to accept the message in the voice you're hearing as well. And then as in if you're opening up your ears and also willing to accept what you hear, then seemingly you'd be able to hear. So this could like this echo, so to speak, which is always there, could manifest through like an inner voice that's like, telling you to wake up. And it could be thoughts of remorse, contemplations of tshuva, of repentance, things that you yearn for that you suddenly feel in your heart. So these are like a sensitive soul, words we use that someone that could ignore that, or someone that could listen deep and see like, where is this coming from? And that's why I also believe that therapy in general is something that the whole world could do with if done right, because of self-exploration and really knowing yourself. Those things are very important. We see these in what Elijah, his conversation with God with regards to Kod Mamadaka, right? Still a voice that you can't hear, which is sort of like a conscious voice talking to you inside. And sometimes it could be God may orchestrate something that leaves a very strong impression on you. And then if you're willing to perceive it as a sign and change your life, then that can make sense. It could be that you don't want to look at it that way. So this is not to say that, as we see in the Bible and we hear in the Talmud, that people are suddenly struck with like a voice, a heavenly voice, and they hear something. I would also say that when you hear like this scientist, like this math genius, I'm saying, where he's suddenly, or Mozart, where he's just like perceiving music suddenly, there's something over there, which is someone listening to the world and listening to himself. And realizing that connection between those things. And then he could really be used also sort of as a channel, as a vessel to allow those things to happen. And, this is why it's very, very important to, as we say, make sure your chimneys are clean, right? So to make sure the message could be received.
Yeah. So this is kind of related to the idea of conscience, which is in Hebrew matzpun. I don't know what the history of that word is. Etymology. I mean, I could think maybe
like Jiminy Cricket.
So Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio, right? So so Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, or he spoke about it when he was talking about Pinocchio. That you have this Jiminy Cricket, is the embodied conscience of Pinocchio that leads him, that sometimes he needs to listen to, so that you have a relationship with. It's almost like an intuition kind of thing. And I think so. I mean,
But
there's
what's your framing though? Also, right? It's recognizing your intuition, being
Mhm.
honed with yourself, like from a emotional point of view, and then you're looking at the world through Torah goggles. Then that voice you're going to hear is going to be in the context of that.
Right. It's
That.
always in a dynamic. That's why you have the ego, super ego, id with it. So you have all these different, right? Nefesh be'amit, nefesh, right?
Right.
The divine soul, the animal soul. There's always multiple dynamics. And again, the multiplicity in one kind of thing. But it's um, right brain, left brain, all those kind of things. It's always manifests in this kind of like something that breaks down, but it also ultimately goes into one thing.
It's funny
Yeah.
if you could go back in time. I'm just imagining like you're sitting at one of these like great lecture halls, and as the rabbi speaks, you get up, you're like, "Yeah, left brain, right brain," like you just say the sequences, the 4 P's.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was the heavenly voice. What does it come on saying? We're going a little solar in this one, which is totally fine. Woe to the creations who insult the Torah, right? So woe in Hebrew, we're saying oi. It's just funny because Hebrew like oi oi oi. It wouldn't be like whoa whoa whoa. But right. So oi lahem briot la briot melbona shel Torah. So first we should notice that it doesn't say woe, woe to the Torah, right? But it's woe to the creations, right?
The creatures, yeah.
The creature. Well, I know they say creatures over here. I don't know why they translated the creatures. It should just
creations. I mean, honestly, even creations in briot is also an interesting. Why does it use briot? Why doesn't it use ish or adam? Like if it refers maybe only for Jews, we might say adam. If it refers more globally, we would say ish. But why briot specifically?
Well, I think there's in a certain sense, and this relates also to the wording of Chazal, which is like, every day the sun praises God, and the earth praises God, and the oceans praise God. So the idea is like this is happening within a dynamic where all things need to be praising God and singing His name and
right.
sort of doing His glory. And this is also why there's an issue with when we're playing God, so to speak, or we're splicing fruits or cloning, right? That's a sense where like you are manipulating nature in a certain sense, not necessarily to do God's will, but to do your will.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay, so we're not saying woe to the Torah, we're saying woe to the creatures. Just reminds me of like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's just like weird wording that they would have creatures of the creations, right? So the Torah itself obviously the Torah in no way is getting diminished, right? It's not damaged, it's not harmed. Whether they studied it or not, the Torah is eternal. Right. So off the bat, it's just letting you know, like the Torah is going to be okay. It's eternal. Right now, the woe to them is for the disgrace. I mean, their reluctancy to engage with the Torah is their disgrace, basically, and they're not recognizing the magnitude of the gift that they have in front of them.
Right. Or so I think the Ramchal in Derech Hashem in the path. No.
The path of God.
The path of God. He mentions that there is 2 conditions that need to be met when you deal with the Torah. You need to have, and you can correct me on this, but one is you need to have a fear of God, meaning awe of like what you're dealing with and appreciating the source, basically. So taking humility,
right?
And the other things I think is just being a mensch, having good attributes, being a good person. If you read the Torah and you're not a good person, then it's not going to lead to life or good things. And if you read the Torah and you're a good person, but you don't appreciate and you're not humble enough to understand what you're dealing with, then also you won't get the energy, is what he talks about, the connection. So I think when you say, like, when it says here, creatures who insult the Torah, it might be people that don't appreciate, they're not humble enough to understand what is
correct,
or at least to put themselves in a position where I'm gonna view it as if, right, as if at least initially, as if it's like the source of sources,
right? But it's it's the elbon, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
for the people that are not engaging in the Torah. It's again, it's talking in a certain context. Like uh, uh, you have people like Rav Yeshua ben Levi who is engaging people at the level wherever they're at in the
Mm-hmm.
context of he who goes to the study hall, he who walks to the study hall, he who sits in the study hall, right? So it's all obviously around the study of Torah. And we're saying that if you're not engaging in that, there's just a level of disrespect with regards to and foolishness. You're just so not recognizing where you're at, right? You just don't realize that this is clearly what is supposed to be the main engagement. So it's to tell you that the world itself, right, the echoing of sounds still from Horeb are coming out and saying, woe unto you, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
what you should be hearing at all times when you're not engaging with the Torah. Because it's almost like there is this crazy, wisdom sitting at your doorstep, and like, it's not even you said, oh, I'm going to get to that soon. It's you're literally not engaging with it. So
Yeah.
it's almost inconceivable with regards to the heavenly voice, right? That echo has to come out and say that.
Right.
And this echo, right, while it could be saying it here, it's not coming and speaking to a specific individual, like with Achnai's oven, right? He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have Rav Eliezer doesn't have it coming out and say like, I agree with this person.
Yeah.
Instead, there's just a cry of woe echoing from there out into the world,
Mm-hmm.
letting people know that these people are disgraced. They should be feeling this inside, and people seeing them know this about them.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, we should note that it says over here every day that is doing this, and this is also to stress that it's not enough that it emerges like from time to time to remind us. Just like the study of Torah needs to be continuous, so there's and like unceasing. So we're constantly hearing. There's no clicking the snooze button on
Right.
this. As long as someone is not studying, so there's this voice is still coming out and
Mm-hmm.
letting us know that we should be participating in this, right? So every day it's coming out and saying like, what a waste, what a waste, what a waste.
Yeah.
It's like supposed to be like the main motivator, you know what I mean? Like now you have like people that work out tell you like you're doing it wrong. Like that's it. It was the first motivator.
Yeah.
שכל מי שאינו עוסק בתורה נקרא נזוף, שנאמר נזם זהב באב חזיר, אישה יפה ושרת טעם. So they give us this verse from Proverbs that this person is considered an outcast, a golden nose in the ring of a snout of a swine, a beautiful woman bereft of reason. Right. So this is one of the things it tells us. So here, the term nazuf also, again, like you just said, it's shunned. It's someone that's pushed away. It's distant from God. And if you remember recently in the last mission, we said someone that engages with the Torah for its own thing is called a beloved, a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here we also see like that difference over here. It's supposed to be some sort of acronym from the phrase that we see of like from the Nezem and the verse that we hear over here from Proverbs. I don't see it exactly as an acronym, but the rabbis were sometimes fast and loose with how they did their acronyms. But it's again, it's displaying the distance that there is. You have a gold element, right, which is the Torah in this certain sense, but it's being used right now in the most disgusting manner, right? It's being used like in a pig's snout right now, whose face is in the mud the whole time. So this again is giving us the example of the person that is neglecting the Torah. He has it within his person, right? Because we're saying this is a Jewish soul, but having said that, obviously this could, for the Gentiles among us who wants to, partake, they can of course partake in the Torah as well. Having said that, here it's speaking specifically to the Jew, but also saying that one who doesn't realize that, or to the Gentile that doesn't realize that wisdom exists. You have gold in your hand, and you're just completely like you're using it as an ashtray, right? Or you have it on your pig's nose, right? And what King Solomon in his wisdom over here is really like letting us know is that, again, like just like this woman, which is beautiful, but when I hear open her mouth, I find out that there's nothing over there, then it's sort of like a waste, right? There's nothing I could do with this beauty right now. There's nothing I could do with this Torah. There's nothing I could do with this gold.
Superficial.
It is exactly. It is superficial, and more than that. In that case, her beauty becomes like it makes it even worse. You know what I mean? Like there was so much potential, and it's sort of like wasted right now. It's
Right.
not only like at least I'll just look at her, knowing that like that symmetry is paired with like nothingness makes it horrible, or seeing that
Right.
gold thing makes us feel like even worse, right? So
Mhm.
God ultimately gave us a Torah, which which gives us intellect, right? And He wants us to rise above the material at the end of the day, above and to subdue the physical, right?
Mhm.
So, but a person that is more interested in his materialistic life, and there in that way he is subduing the Torah. This too is literally the pig shoving his nose in the ground, right? It's taking
Yeah.
that gold and pushing it down because that's all it's thinking about. We all know already that Chazal uses very intense verses and examples.
Mhm.
It's a miracle they didn't just say that you get removed from this earth,
Yeah.
as they said
This is
before.
like a short kind of, you know what I mean.
Right, exactly. And the tablets are the work of God, and the writing is God's writing, engraved on the tablets. Read not engraved, charut, but liberty, charut. For there is no free individual except though for he who occupies himself with the Torah study. Right. Okay. So here too we see, the Torah is, someone that's not realizing the opportunity you have to reading the Torah is he could think to himself, right, that you could think to yourself, listen, I may be considered shunned, nazuf, as we said, by God, but ultimately now I'll do whatever I want and I'll be free, right? Because like I'll have that sense of freedom, and at 120, when I reach the pearly gates, so to speak, then I'll deal with it. But now I'll live my free life and I'll do what I want. Now, that's why Rav Shua ben Levi lets us know, no. He gives us this additional verse of don't read engraved. And again, the words in Hebrew are very similar, charut and cherut. In English, obviously, engraved and liberty do not come from the same root. But here it's letting us know that it should be charut. Now, we should notice that if something is engraved on an object, it's not on its surface.
Right.
It's actually inside, right? So it should be really engraved in the tablets and not engraved on the tablets, right? And we are being told over here that someone who understands that the tablets are from God and the commandments are from God, at the end of the day, he is elevating himself above the material, and it's not fixed to the material itself. And the words of the Torah themselves are not enslaved to the material. They're written on top of the material, but they're not stuck inside it. And that's why that when the tablets broke, the first tablets broke, right? The writing itself, as we told, it flew up and raised back to the heavens. The letter themselves floated back into the air. And this also is showing us that the letters of God, or the divine concepts of God, are not enslaved to the tablets themselves. So here too, with regards to someone thinking that he can distance himself from the Torah and he gets freedom, it's really on the contrary, right? So only one who engages is truly a free person, right? One who is clinging to the Torah, and he is freed from the shackles, so to speak, of the material world. Because in the material world, you have to, if you were engraved, you would have to be engraved inside it. If you're looking at the world through the Torah, you're engraved on top of it. And that's why you really have this freedom that allows you to ascend and be released from the material framework.
Interesting. So it's, I guess you can see it in two sort of contradictory ways, because also the note that I have here that makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, that in terms of something being engraved, is not necessarily like ink, which is separate from the material, from the paper, let's say, itself. So it's not something that's written on ink on the paper. It's something that it's engraved into the stone, meaning that we can have a metaphor of somebody that you might be somebody that has a really hard time keeping some kind of habit, and you do it very surface level. You do it, but it's not part of your identity. It's not part of who you are. So it's very hard for you. But at some point, it becomes second nature, right? And it's engraved within you. It synergizes with your identity. You wake up in the morning, is what you do. You do it as a reflex, right? So it's that part of the engraved is like showing that if you engage enough with the Torah, it becomes second nature to you. You just as reflexive instead of something that is just can be easily erased.
So I hear again with like your again. So you're saying this is the comment that someone's offering, an explanation that someone's offering over there.
This is the comment. Yeah, it's a long. Well, yeah, this is the Rebbe in Bulim.
Okay, so I totally understand how someone would look at it being engraved and see the positive in it. Specifically, when we're given that extra reading of the verse, Atikra Charut Ele Cherut, he's breaking it up. He's using it through that prism, right? Which is like the surface engraving and not fully connected inside. But on the flip side, yes, your reading also could be a possible reading.
And the Maral here,
except the Rebbe.
Yeah, and the Maral, yeah. I mean, it says the Rebbe. They kind of sound similar, but I mean, they're definitely different. But the Maral is the one that is, I think, what you spoke to. His note is more in line with that. Transcends the material.
Correct. It transcends the material. And again, like the letters were floating when the tablets were, fortunately slash unfortunately, thrown by Moses. Okay, so we read about the tablets, right? Right? Because there is no free individual except for he who occupies himself with the study of Torah, right? So just going back to what we said earlier, again, it would seem puzzling to assert that someone that is engaged in Torah study is really a free person. A Ben Chorin is a free person, which is because I am still burdened by the conceptual 613 commandments, right? The laws of the Torah, the commandments of the Torah. How am I being free over here, right? So how do I not have if I still have this external burden on top of me, right? Yeah. So again, freedom in this review, Yeshua ben Levi is trying to tell us or dispel this incorrect view is real freedom is only found when you engage with the Torah. So again, in reality, and we mentioned this a few minutes ago in a different sense, no one is truly free to do as they wish. Right? We all have, and no one could just do whatever they want with regards to their impulses and indulge themselves as much as we want. We have
it's laws. Impossible to be completely free and be alive at the same time. You'll just,
so on multiple levels, that's on the extreme, right? Like all individuals also restrain themselves in some sense, and we all have rules, restrictions, and all of these things confine our actions. And once we decide to move someplace, there's those regulations, and these obviously laws. As society, we design them to protect society and and uphold the values that we have as a society as well, that most people agree with. Now, the difference is these social laws, right? That we all are law-abiding citizens, I believe. They don't impact us on a moral or the individuals on a moral level, right? They're more with regards to creating law and order. They're more practical in this sense, and they also sometimes clash even with our own individual desires. Right now, there is a sense where if you are dealing with the general individual struggles, and sometimes people are rebelling, if the law decides to press too hard on you, right, will break. So they have to always be watched by the authority, how people are behaving. In a contrast, the laws of the Torah are really there to elevate your person, the moral standing of the person. And they're really there to refine us and to purify our character traits. And when one is connecting to the Torah, one is hopefully becoming a more ethical person, a better version of himself. And in this way, when an entire society, in theory, could become a more high quality, deep, with internal recognition, and like I said, why therapy is, if done properly, is definitely a good way to get there. Or the fact that people are getting mindfulness apps, right? If we all move and phase shift to a higher level, then you could really get to a place where mutual assistance between individuals is happening because of genuine desire, right? Yeah. And I am helping people because this is rooted to my soul and how I understand the Torah, what the Torah wants from me, and not because of superficial politeness or things that we want to do. So only someone who is truly free is one who decides to engage in the Torah in such a way which allows him to really free himself from improper behavior and raise all of society, including himself.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes me think about, I don't know how connected this is, but I mean, it just makes me think about, trying to put yourself in a good position materialistically. Materialistically, is that a thing? Like in terms of mindfulness and being it's great that people are elevating themselves. And this is also obviously what I'm trying to do as well. And with all that, in addition to that, we also need to have the direction or the purpose of it. For what is it done for? Because otherwise it's like that surface level that we kind of engaged here, right? Like this, what, all these meditation apps are great if eventually there is where to take them. Because if you are just more mindful so that you can consume more, so you can be more, I don't know, it's like
I mean, ultimately, this is in the base of John Vervaeke's a religion that's not a religion, right? They're trying to build something where you are behaving as a society that's raising yourself up and acting in a certain way, right? It's obviously hard to do when you don't have that point of orientation that you're trying to get to, but doing it because the law says so, doing it because John Vervaeke is a little closer, right? Doing it because I think this will be better for humanity is another way. We do it because, and this is also the difference between I'm not being free. I'm not doing it because I'm constrained by a legal system that restricts what I'm doing. I'm joyfully shouldering the yoke of the Torah on top of me and its commandments, right? I'm doing that because I want to take this on, because I want to become this person, because I feel that this is what is being asked of me from God.
Yeah.
All right. וכל מי שעוסק בתלמוד תורה, הרי זה מתעלה, שנאמר, ומתנה נחליאל ומנחליאל במות. And whoever occupies himself with the study of Torah is elevated, as it is stated, and from the gift to Nachliel, and from Nachliel heights. Okay, so if we started off with saying the person who is not participating in the Torah, the heavenly voice is saying, "Oy," and he is nazuf, right? He's considered shunned, right? We're concluding in a positive note, which is praising and elevating the status, the stature of those who are on the other side of this argument, the ones who are studying Torah for its own sake. As we said earlier, that they're getting closer to God. They are considered His beloved, right? And just as far as Nachliel, the Torah lets us know, just like a Nachliel is like a water well. So just as these waters that revitalize all who are thirsty, right? So does the Torah also. It revives and rejuvenates our spirit, right? So that's again, from Nachliel, Umtana Nachliel, Nachliel b'mot. So I'm saying you get a gift to have this wellspring of water given to you. If you participate in that wellspring, right, there could be growth, there could be life, there could be sustenance from this, and this allows you to reach higher heights, right? This allows you to partake in a journey of elevation, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we were in the wilderness eventually, right? And then in the wilderness we get the Torah. That's like the gift we get, but that gift allows us to go on and on and on, right? If we take advantage of it. If we realize how to appreciate the inheritance that God gave us with this Torah.
Yeah, it's interesting. The note here is interesting. Maybe I can read it, I guess.
Please.
Well, the first thing just that it mentions this literal context of Nachniel and Matana, which are two milestones during Exodus,
well, after the, like I said, after the accepting of the Torah in the desert.
Right. Yeah. So it mentions, like you said, it takes that kind of more homiletic interpretation. And then The Rebbe expounds on this where he says, he breaks it down where you have gift, inheritance, and elevation. So gift is something that is given from one party to another. So
Mm-hmm.
when the Torah is described as a gift, the implication is that it is the recipient is a separate entity from the giver. And this is the level spoken of in the beginning of the Braita, what we're reading, where the individual lives within the realm of the mundane, separate from God. And through the sword of Torah, Chorev, he conquers the world of holiness. Then it goes into the second level, which is inheritance, which operates differently. And since there, the heir takes the place of the original, the heir there takes the place of the original owner. You come
Mm-hmm.
into an inheritance. It is not conceived as a transfer. The inheritor is one. The inheritor of Torah is one with God, like the engraved stone, and is therefore freed from the chains of the mundane. And then the elevation is the true elevation refers not merely to transcending the mundane, but rather to achieving the highest heights, absolute unity with God's essence.
I mean, the way it's also broken down is reminding me of my point with regards to it's a journey towards elevation, right?
Right.
Ultimately, like it's step by step by step, you move
Mm-hmm.
closer and closer to God ultimately.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, the magical book. I want to just comment. I see some people are commenting over here. Maria, no teman la luz y atomto el control está limpio su casa le motor no existe. I agree, but I'm also not sure what it says. So, and can I copy the text? Why can't I copy the text?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Maria, thank you for engaging. If you could do so in our language, much appreciated. Rabbi Malot, I hope all is well. You, of course, are free to add any insights I'm sure you have. And Sherry, no for individual except for those who kept, for he who occupies himself with the study of Torah. Correct. This is something that Nate and I spoke about as well on our live stream, which you graciously joined as well, with regards to the difference between uh, 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 um, keeping the commandments because you are commanded to do so, or keeping them because you believe they are the right thing to do. And while one, specifically a Gentile, can receive benefit from doing the commandments because he believes it's the right thing to do, nevertheless, and this is also very important in the Noahide movement, it's very important for Maimonides that one does so because he is commanded to do so. And there are categorical differences between those two mindsets. Yes, it's very important that we're doing so because we are commanded to do so, and that gives us our freedom, not because we just want to do so. The study, one more comment over here, is the study of Torah the same as keeping the commandments? And if so, why? The study of Torah is part of the commandments. It's not the only commandments, but it's like we just said, it's something that it needs to remain on your hearts and on your soul and on your lips. It is the continuous engagement with God's words and continuous engagement throughout the generations, trying to maintain that link, that prophetic link, all the way back to the echoing voice that we still hear in coming from Mount Sinai, Sherry. So in order to be able to still hear those sounds, hear those echoes, we want to train ourselves with that language and that frequency. And in order to do so, one needs to really be able to look at the world through that framing. And in order to do that, one has to engage daily with the Torah, the words of his creator. So again, the study of Torah is an all encompassing mitzvah, and in certain sense, it's as if you kept all the commandments,
Right.
right?
It's equal to them all.
Right, but again,
Or even
at
more.
the end of the day, Torah also needs to be embodied, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of a contemplative life, yes, a mystical life, right? Okay, okay. Sherry, of course, you're also welcome to join, and your insights and comments are always much appreciated.
Right. I mean, the Torah is the. I mean, it's like the. It's like this. It's like the source. It's like, I mean, the food that you eat allows you to do the things that you need to do to lift to make your bed, right? To lift the pillow. To put, I have a bed here, so that's why I'm talking about a bed. To put the sheets right and to put the pillow right. So it's the Torah that enables you to do the mitzvot. I think that's right. That's part of the reason why.
In all senses. So you asked why the creations, like the same thing. You're living in a world where the trees and the dolphins and the weather and all those things, right? If Maimonides is looking at concepts like of angels, like the power of gravity or things like that, this is all of the world, all the universe working in a beautiful, harmony, so to speak. And when in perfect harmony, right, seemingly the miraculous happens, right? Which is is the sea of reeds splitting because God is intervening, or is the sea of reeds splitting because the world was made in such a harmony through God that when the Israelites got to that point, and when the sea of reeds was at that point, what was natural to happen was it for the water to split. It meant as it saw Israel as form, it saw itself as a function, and in that sense, when all those things align, it is supposed to open up, so to speak. And that's why when we look at God through the God of history, so to speak, or looking at God's back as he saw Moses through that interpretation being the God of history, or seeing God in retrospect, that is one of the reasons why. And again, this is Jacob's channel, which we're very appreciative. And just to make clear, it's not a Zionistic channel, nor is it a channel that supports Zionism. Having said that, or the Zionistic political movement more specifically, the sequence and timing of the things that happened over the last 75 years, to me, are an indication, right? If I'm looking back, like, wow, that's miraculous. Like the 6-Day War, to me, is something that is miraculous if you look about it in retrospect, how all those things come together when they're supposed to come together. Yeah, okay. Hala. What is this? Sorry, Sherry's all over this place. Is this seeing God's back? Yes, it is seeing God's back, as Moses did in contrast to seeing God's face. Study the Torah, for example, keeping commandments. I think we see God manifest in this way. Yes, I hope that makes sense. Yes, yes, correct. High five, Sherry, in virtually not alone. Yes, and studying. We also, there is a teaching in Jewish thought, which is God looked at the Torah and created the world. We also have Derech Eretz Kadmala Torah, which is the way of the land, or the undergirding ethics are before the Torah in some way, but even the undergirding ethics are part of the Torah at the end of the day. So God looked at the Torah and created the world. So when we are participating in the Torah, learning the Torah, and then embodying that and engaging in the real world, if doing so correctly, we are supposed to be able to see God's face. Just like Jacob saw God's face in Esau, Kiraiti Pnei El, and just like Moses sees God's face as he sees it in his fellow man, right? So if we're doing it properly, we could also see God's face, his manifest in all his creations, and how fortunate we'll be when we get to that day. Seeing God's back and seeing how he moves in history is sort of at a different scale. Okay. I believe, don't be afraid of the light. I've taken control. You're cleaning your house.
That's the Spanish translation.
Oh, okay. I was like, are you threatening me?
That was not me. Just
don't be afraid of the light. I'm taking control. You're cleaning your house. Death doesn't exist.
I don't know if that's the correct translation, but that's just,
or it's like a few things that Maria was saying, which is like, if we mention light, don't be scared of it. I've taken control. You're cleaning your house, like for Pesach, I guess, and death doesn't exist. I guess ultimately it's all part of one force in the world. I hope I engaged fairly with your comments. Okay. The Torah existed before the world was made. Love it. Yes. So in sort of that the Torah was the blueprint of the world. Ben and I also discussed this with regards to Hakol natun hakol tzafui v'rashut netuna. Right, that everything is has been perceived by God or anticipated by God, or yet permission is given. Right. So what does that mean? That we have freedom, but yet God is aware of everything. So this has to do with retraction, God creating ultimate freedom within a structure that he built. So ultimately it's considered freedom, but at the end of the day, it's not freedom. Again, for another lecture. Okay. Next Mishnah. Number Gimel. Do you want to take it away? Or I don't know what your timing is like right now. Do you want to stop?
I'm good. I just need to stand up for this, I think.
Just because it's like such a high level. I get you.
It's high level. Yes. Actually, this is pretty good, but
go ahead, stand up.
Let me read it first. And then we'll go for it.
Sure.
So, Gimel 3, הלומד מחברו פרק אחד, או הלכה אחת, או פסוק אחד, או דיבור אחד, או אפילו אות אחת, צריך לנהוג בו כבוד, שכן מציינו דוד מלך ישראל, שלא למד מאחיתופל אלא שני דברים בלבד. קראו רבו אלופו ומידעו, שנאמר, ואתה אנוש כערכי, אלופי ומיודעי. והלא הדברים קל וחומר, ומה דוד מלך ישראל שלא למד מאחיתופל אלא שני דברים בלבד, קראו רבו אלופו ומידעו, הלומד מחברו פרק אחד או הלכה אחת או פסוק אחד או דיבור אחד או אפילו אות אחת, על אחת כמה וכמה שצריך לנהוג בו כבוד. ואין כבוד אלא תורה, שנאמר, כבוד חכמים ינחלו, ותמימים ינחלו טוב. ואין טוב אלא תורה, שנאמר, כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזבו. I just read this in ברכות, actually, tractate ברכות. They were referencing this as well. Okay, English. One who learns from his fellow a single chapter, or a single law, or a single verse, or a single word, or even a single letter, he must treat him with respect. For so we find with David, king of Israel, who did not learn anything from Achitophel except for two things alone. Yet he called him his master, his guide, and his intimate, as is stated in Psalms, and you are a man of my worth, my guide, and my intimate friend. Surely we can infer a fortiori, Kal v'chomer, if David, king of Israel, who learned nothing from Achitophel except for two things alone, nevertheless referred to him as his master, guide, and intimate, it certainly goes without saying that one who learns from his fellow a single chapter, a law, a verse, a saying, or even a single letter, is obligated to revere him. And there is no reverence but Torah, as is stated in Proverbs, the sages shall inherit honor, and integral shall inherit good. And there is no good but Torah, as is stated also in Proverbs, I have given you a good purchase, my Torah, do not forsake it.
All right. So this is why when Jacob says like nachis for girls, how do you got to know all these characters? Okay, so obviously anyone we see over here, every person who learns any aspect from the Torah from another, really has to treat them with respect. And it gives us this, the evidence it uses is the verse that talks about, or not the verse, or talks about the relationship between King David and Achitophel. How is it in Achitophel? There's no like Jeroboam. I guess here it's more straightforward.
Achitophel sounds like a cream or something.
I've been using Achitophel the whole time, and like the rash didn't go away. So okay, so who is Achitophel? Just for some background, he is a very distinguished man, scholar, and he was the head of the Sanhedrin, the high court, so to speak, of in the days of David. And because of his vast wisdom, he also served as David's advisor, and he was really, really respected. So much so that the sages of Israel, before they would go into war, they would first discuss with Achitophel, and only then, after he agreed with their plan, would they go speak to the Urim Tumim. The Urim Tumim are the breastplate that the high priest wore, with all the different gemstones from the tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes, and the gemstones would light up in a miraculous fashion, giving some sort of advice. But his advice was so sought after that they would first go to him, right? And only then they would go to the Urim Tumim. However, this fantastic man, or this ultimately his interior was not like his exterior, right? So he was very power hungry, and when he also thought he needed to be king, and ultimately he joins Absalom, David's son, to rebel against David. And once he realizes that the rebellion is failing, and he knows he's going to be accused for treason, he ends up killing himself, right? Nevertheless, right, this person, we still hear that David himself uses all these beautiful words, right? So like you said, fortiori, what is it? How is it said here? Fortiori, like it reminds like a priori, but fortiori, right? So this is a in Latin, I'm sure, from the stronger argument, right? So this is what a kal v'chomer is, which is used all the time, which is if I'm drawing a conclusion that's even more obvious or convincing than the previous conclusion I just drew.
Right. If I can lift 100 pounds, obviously I can lift 10 pounds. That's kal v'chomer.
Correct. Exactly. So if we see that Achitophel's qualities are are inverse to his levels of wisdom, right? Yet we still see that David is treating him with respect because of the things that he learned from him. And even though Achitophel really despised David and really glorified himself at David's expense, and disgracing David, the king of Israel at the time, nevertheless, David always, and he would always remind King David, of what happened with Bathsheba, his affair, even though, as we say, the Torah says that David never sinned. Why did David not sin? Because David repented, and repentance allows you to atone for your sins, and we need nothing else. God is always waiting for us to repent, and he's willing to accept us the second we do. So here we see, again, he's treating him really inappropriately, but he uses these crazy words of, my master, my guide. So it really is a beautiful example of how to still appreciate that from some people, even if there's much we despise about them. So I think that was just another example of the kal v'chomer, again, using this example of how it's so, if we learn it from this, obviously, if someone that's treating you well or someone that's nice to you, how much more so would we have to appreciate someone like that, like a rabbi or a teacher, someone that's really investing in us. הלומד מחברו פרק אחד או הלכה אחת או פסוק אחד או דיבור אחד או אפילו עוד אחת, על אחת כמה וכמה שצריך לנהוג בו כבוד. Right? So, can you just scroll down? It certainly goes out saying that one who learns from his fellow a single chapter, a law, a verse, or a saying, or even a single letter is obligated to revere them, and there's no reverence but Torah. Okay, before we get to no reverence, I'm going to just break down this every single letter, chapter, verse, saying, right? So first we're talking about learning from here. It's in Hebrew, it's mechavero, right? I'm learning from my peer. I'm learning from my friend. It's not necessarily like my teacher. And it's not saying one that is taught by a peer, one who teaches a peer. Right? It's also, we should notice this difference as well. And the emphasis over here on learning from a peer is suggesting us that even without a teacher, even without intending to teach, the learner is still, nevertheless, he has to give them respect. So if I'm listening to a live stream, someone speaking, and I just learned something over here, he didn't try to teach me. He doesn't claim to be my teacher. Nevertheless, I should respect this person because I am benefiting from their wisdom and I am learning from them. Right? Obviously, we're talking about in the context of Torah. However, I think there's a lot of Torah to be had in the TLC when people are talking. Sometimes they're not framing it as Torah. Sometimes they don't realize that it originates in Torah. Either way, nevertheless, there is Torah still there. And when a person is ready to accept Torah, wisdom, or moral instruction from a teacher, but he can't handle it from a peer, even if his peer is speaking like valid points, there's like a natural barrier there, right? Which is like, I can't handle it from someone like this. I need to hear it from someone that has authority. But
Right.
the Torah is letting us know that that's not the case. It's possible to learn from everyone, and it's proper to learn from everyone as well.
Right. Mikol melamdai eskalti.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's really, it's all the way from one chapter or one law or even one letter. Whatever there is to learn from them. Again, it doesn't mean like they just, but I guess you could say even in them teaching me the shape of this letter, but it's anything that this person has to teach me, even if it's something very, very small, almost the size of the letter, even there, I should be appreciative of that as well.
Right.
Wondering if your book has anything else on this, though, because I feel like I'm missing something on this.
So I think, it kind of emphasizes even more so the Kal V'chomer,
Okay.
So it talks about how the two things that Achitopel taught David.
Right.
So, or at least one of them was something that David actually knew, but he just didn't say that he knew because he was humble. He was humble. He wanted to give Achitopel the chance to seem as if he's teaching him something. So if you do it to that extent, if you do it even in that, if he did it even in that instance, obviously when somebody actually teaches you something that you didn't know before, you should revere him even more so. So he talks about that.
All right. Okay, we'll go into the verse. Ve'en kavod el Torah she'nemar kavod chachamim yanchilu utmimim inchalu tov. Right, and there's no reverence but Torah, as it is stated, the sages shall inherit honor, and the integral shall inherit good. Right, so there is no honor but Torah, which is an interesting way of talking about this. Right, so it is the Tana in this sense is adding that every person known to be wise in Torah should be honored, basically. And even someone that didn't learn from them anything yet, right, is not like, if you must honor your peer because you learn one thing from them. So someone that has already been seen and known as to being a sage or someone in great in Torah, you should honor them. So this is quite straightforward.
Yeah.
And tov el Torah shenemar ki lekaftoch natati lachem torati al ta'azovu. And there is no good but Torah, as it is stated, I have given you a good purchase, my Torah, do not forsake it. Right, so that is very beautiful, of course. And in our world, there's many things that are defined as good, right? But they all have a downside because there's no good without bad, as far as that dichotomy. Like as we could said, money is considered a virtue. Obviously, it could be used against you, but when it says there is no good but Torah, it's letting us know that it's lekach tov. It's a good purchase here. I would say that a doctrine is a better interpretation, right? I'm giving you like a pathway in this certain sense. And it's more of the Chazal take the word lekach and use it as transaction. Here it's saying like purchase, which is it's not just a gift that you're getting. Right. So if I open up a business, right, and I have to go through many steps. So I need to get a license. I need to sign up with the business registry, and I have to pay taxes, and I have to rent a place. I have to do all those things ultimately. And once I open up my store, it could be that the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 months, no one's coming in. Right. That doesn't mean I close my store and I give up. So same thing with the Torah, someone that is realizing that God is giving us a doctrine over here, one that we could, if we take seriously, we could get ownership on, we could purchase it. Maybe it is the right phrase. We could purchase it. That allows us to take it a lot more seriously. So if we take the Torah in a certain sense, like a business, if we look at it and we want to sink our heart and soul into it, that means that even those difficult days are not days that we're going to give up and stop trying. We'll realize that this is a long-term investment. And doing so, not letting go of it, will allow us ultimately to grow from it, benefit from it, and be elevated by it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this kind of lekach always brings back memories for me. Like I remember in school, like in poetry class or whatever, not poetry, literature class. The first time that you start analyzing stories, they would teach you about this thing called lekach, like the lekach of the story, the moral of the story, which is also it's a interesting term. So what is it trying to teach you? The teaching. So this is kind of reminds me, lekach reminds me of like a teaching. Like I gave you a good teaching, or even in the sense of sof maaseh b'machshavat tchila, like what's the end result of this Torah? The end result of this Torah is lekach tov, is a good purpose, is a good
well, here it's purchase, but it's a good it's
the end result
experience.
It's a good experience. So like I gave you something with good experience, and maybe when you go through the story, you don't understand it. And like you said, the business is like you work with the. I was saying that lekach,
a good experience.
It's a good experience at the end, right? It's the thing that you get at the end. It's kind of like with the God's back and God's front, right? Like you can't see the front, you can only see the back. Like you can only experience the story, and then after you read the story, after you experience the thing, then you can understand the what was its purpose, what was the gist of it, right?
I mean, that's in the words of the Israelites at Mount Horeb, Naaseh v'nishma, right? We will do and we will hear.
Right. So this is what
the hearing is going to happen later. The full understanding is going to happen later. I'm first going to embody. I'm first going to do. I'm first going to make sure that that's my experience. And we believe, and I believe, I don't know if we have to even wait as long as the eschaton. Rather, we could already see in elements like how the Jewish tradition, Billy, into bed, please. How the Jewish tradition has, in many sense, preserved the Jewish people, saved the Jewish people, and I want to say these are low hanging fruit, in relatively speaking, but even the effect of Jews, secular Jews, whether it be on sciences and on music and all the things where miraculously Jews excel at, all these are downstream, I believe, from this very, very rich embodied culture. Yes, at some point people ended up doing their own thing. However, I think that is still there. And how much more beautiful could it be if everyone is participating in that, through the proper orientation, right? Doing it for heaven's sake, and doing studying Torah for its own sake. I'm just going to go through this again. To learn only two things from another is definitely to them and made them humble. Yes, correct, Sherry. How did I miss that? Should be humbling experience. Most people feel jealous, unfortunately. You're right. Most people do feel jealous, and they shouldn't feel that way. They should realize that it's there. This what makes King David great. He was always a shepherd boy in his heart. That is true. Jacob Fromer is a very good friend of mine. I'm glad that he decided to join us. So it's very, very nice. Thank you, Jacob, for joining, if you're still there. Sherry, this is what Jesus told the rich young ruler. Why do you call me good? Good? There is no good but the Father. Right. I would say that Jesus is using some knowledge he learned in the Beit Midrash very, very well. But regardless, anyone proclaiming glory to the Father is cool in my book. As far as like being humble, you realize that it just brings it reminds me of something that we just read in last week's weekly portion in the Haftarah. At the end, once we read from the 5 books, we read a different portion every week. We have at the end of the reading, we read a chapter from the prophets. usually, and generally speaking, it has something to do, and it's echoing a concept that we read in the weekly portion. This week we were talking about the prophet Elijah and his interaction with Naaman. And in this interaction, the king lets the king of Israel know that Naaman is sick. It's a problem. And he has a skin issue. And this needs to be taken care of. And he sends all this money and gifts to the king of Israel and says, like, please take care of this. And the king of Israel is like bugging out. How am I going to take care of this person? I don't know what to do right now.
Yeah.
And word comes to Elijah, and he sort of reaches out to the king and says, like, if you guys are dealing with an issue right now, you guys should reach out to me because there's like a prophet in Israel. And you realize like how, even though the prophet was there, people didn't realize or appreciate or know how to utilize or interact.
The king didn't know. Right.
Correct. The king wasn't even thinking about it. And then the king's like, oh, great. Yeah, Naaman. And Naaman comes and says like, yep, all you need to do. Naaman doesn't even meet the guy. Right. Mm-hmm. He says like, yeah, go into the river, immerse yourself, and you're going to be fine. And this is also like a great moment of repentance in a Gentile, and also how we see sort of like a quote unquote a Noahide over here emerge. Right. Naaman sees this, and his response is, I now know that God, this is the true God, and this is the real deal, so to speak. He also sees that because Elisha wants no money. He's not asking for anything in return. He didn't have to meet him. He knows what to do, so to speak. He's this man of God. And what's fascinating is that he goes and tells Elisha, I want to make sure that God's going to forgive me, because when I go back to my king, I still got to participate with Rimmon. I still got to participate with their mediators of pagan of worship. And I want God to know that, like, I'm going to be participating with a Rimmon, but it's really wink, wink. I know that I get the jest right now.
Yeah, it's a very specific like detail that's added at the end. It's a very weird.
And Elisha lets him know, like, yep, it's all good in the hood. And that is, I mean, where we learn concepts of Shitu from, and where we learn what I at least think is, it's a slow roll. It's an on-ramping for the world, where God says, like, if you got it, and that's awesome. And now I clearly realize you have no community, right? You're going back right now to your king place. So how am I going to balance those things? What am I supposed to come back and be like, you just paid for my whole healing experience? Guess what? All your gods are rubbish. So there's a sense where God is recognizing that the nations of the world, it's going to be a longer journey, so to speak. I think that journey was in a certain way fast-tracked through Islam and Christianity, right? And this alludes back to the famous Maimonides saying that Jacob and I quote all the time, right? That they're the path makers for the Messiah. Mm-hmm. And that's why when Jacob talks about how, like, you know, he wants people to go to church, and he wants there to be a good pope, and he wants it to be successful, because it's sort of like in Naaman's way. Like, we believe that, like, if that is the journey you're on and that is the vessel you're through, like, you know, you should be doing that. One, like Naaman, who want to learn more. So in the Noahide path, there's an option to start purifying, so to speak, right? Those elements, those pathways, right? We still want many cultural elements of Christianity to remain while being purified. Same thing with Islam, but that's, again, for another discussion. And yes, Sherry, the slow and the steady wins the race. So as far as I'm concerned, and I mentioned this before, and I'll end on this, the 12 tribes are going through the ocean, and we say they have 12 separate splits, right? The sea didn't split into two, rather it's split into 12 different paths for each one of the tribes. And the tribes did not see each other's feet, but they saw each other's faces, and they knew they were going towards the same direction. And in a sense, I'm using this as an example to our Christians and Muslim brothers, which is they potentially are more distant than us. However, we ultimately know that we are oriented towards the Father, Hashem, Allah, and we are all moving there. So slow and steady, as long as we realize that we're not each other's enemies, rather each other's allies. And again, I know Jacob has a hard time with kumbaya. Ultimately, things will be revealed. And I don't think people need to be pushovers. However, there's a time and place for everything. And I think in this time and age, while we need to be brave and speak our truths, it makes sense to also build coalitions in a quote unquote kumbaya fashion, right? I don't think I'm in any way saying, equating them all or saying they're all the same, but we still have to be able to speak together. Same branches get